Hi guys, welcome to this week's Random Ramble. So this week we're going to talk about protein. Now, if you missed last week's video, then you may be wondering why I'm suddenly popping up with a video. That's because every week I'm going to be sharing these little 10-minute videos just to share a bit of education around some of the questions you guys may have asked me, or just random topics that I think may be useful for you on your fitness and weight loss journeys. Now, if you've got any questions or anything that you would like me to cover, then please don't be shy. Just stick your questions or ask for particular topics in the comments. If you do have questions or things that you want to know, you need to get the answers to those questions because it is just going to make things easier as you move through your journeys, okay? So this week we're going to talk about protein. Now I've spoken to a few of you about this week already, which is why it is the topic of the week. But before we go into details, what I just want to say is for those of you who are trying to lose weight, before you start thinking about macronutrients and protein, you need to make sure that you are consistently getting your calorie intake right. So as you already know, calories in less than calories out will mean you lose weight. You need to get to a point where you have that nailed first before you start thinking about other changes you can make in your diet. So if you're not yet losing weight consistently, if you're struggling to find that right balance with your calories, then don't worry about overcomplicating it with things like macronutrients. However, there are some of you who are a little bit further down the line, and some of you whose goals are not necessarily weight loss related anymore, who may benefit from knowing a little bit more about macronutrients. So let's start with protein. So there are 3 macronutrients in total, which are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And every single calorie you consume will come from one of those 3 macronutrients. There is another source of calories, which is alcohol, but generally people tend to ignore that when they're thinking about macronutrients because it doesn't offer any actual nutrient value to the body, whereas the other 3 do. So let's keep it simple and just think about those 3. Now, we're talking about protein because, in my opinion, protein is the most important macronutrient out of the 3. And that's because every single cell in our body requires protein to grow and to repair itself. If we have not got sufficient protein in our body, then those repairs, that development cannot happen. Now, proteins are made up of amino acids. There are 21 amino acids in total, and some of those are actually produced naturally in the body. However, there are 9 known as the non-essential amino acids, which we can only get through our diet. So it is essential that we are eating protein or consuming protein to give our body the best chance to repair and develop the way it should. So it can also help with weight loss. It's not just a weight reason behind getting protein. So if you have a diet that's higher in protein, you're going to find it easier to control your appetite and keep your calories down. And that's because protein is higher satiating, which means it takes longer to digest than the other 2 macronutrients do. On top of that, when you are losing weight, your body will try to actually hold on to some of your fat stores and try and break down other body tissues, such as muscle, to use as energy. Now, a great way to prevent that from happening is number 1, resistance training. So that's any sort of training under load, whether that's using weights, resistance bands, body weight stuff. And the other thing to do is have a high intake of protein, and that will ensure that your muscles have got enough protein to keep repairing and growing, to reduce that muscle breakdown and increase the level of fat that is burned rather than muscle. So there's obviously lots of benefits to having lots of protein in your body. The other thing is, most of you who are trying to lose weight, you're probably not trying to focus on just losing a number. You've probably got a body shape in mind that you're trying to achieve. One of the most common things that people say to me when I ask them about what it is they're looking for is they'll talk about actually looking toned. And looking toned comes from having some element of muscle mass. And you're not going to have or retain that muscle mass unless you do have enough protein in your body. So stop thinking about this just as a weight loss journey. Think of it as almost a body transformation. And that's where protein plays a massive part in actually helping you get to the goal that you're visualizing, rather than just the numerical goal of actually losing weight. So we know why protein is important and why you should focus on having it, but how much do you actually need? Now, this is a question that's actually contested across the whole fitness and nutrition industry. But to give you a rough ballpark, 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight up to 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight is a a good range to sort of aim for. You can go over 1.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. There's some people believe that having too much protein is bad for your kidneys. There's no research to actually show that unless you have an underlying kidney condition already. So you can go higher if you want to. However, if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to find that trying to go higher than 1.8 grams is not going to leave a lot of room, a lot of calories to eat much else. So having somewhere in the middle, around about 1.3 to 1.5, tends to work best for a lot of people. And that means you're going to be retaining the muscle that you've got, and you're going to be able to control your appetite. So let's have a look at the maths on that. So 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, if you're a 100 kilogram individual, that will mean that you're aiming for 120 grams of protein per day. 1.8 would be 180 grams of protein per day. So sit down and do the maths yourself, okay? Take 1.2, times it by your body weight in kilograms. That will give you a minimum figure that you want to get up to, and then look at that maximum figure. And as I say, 1.4 is probably a good range for most people to aim for. That's what I personally aim for, and that's what I recommend to a lot of people. So take the time to actually do the maths and work this out yourself. Now, if you're using an app like MyFitnessPal, then you can actually see what quantity of the macronutrients you're having. So you can see a breakdown. So you can actually customize your target. So you can put in how much protein you're aiming for, and you can track how close or how far off you are to that. Now, what I recommend is if you are miles away from even that minimum figure, don't try and suddenly start massively increasing your protein. Do it slowly, okay? If you make a dramatic change overnight, you're probably not going to stick to it. Whereas you just try and increase it little bit at a time, you've got a much better chance of getting up to that point and then sticking with it, because it's more of a habit. So do take the time to do that. If you're at the point where you've mastered your calorie intake, your next good thing to think about would be your protein. Are you at that minimum, or are you up to sort of 1.4, 1.5? If you're well off it, then slowly build up to it week on week. Make the changes necessary to get there. If you're not tracking, or you're not tracking your calories, you're not keeping a food diary or anything like that, then another way that you can do it is to try and aim for a minimum of a quarter of everything you eat coming from protein. And that's, again, work your way up to that. Don't try and make it happen overnight if you're miles away, but that's a good target to aim for to ensure you're getting a sufficient amount. If you're not sure where protein comes from, I'm not going to try and give you a long list on this video. If you go into the files section on the Clever Calorie Club Facebook page, then you're going to find an ebook that I did a little while ago called The Complete Guide to Protein. Download that. It's got much more information than I'm giving you on this video, and it's also got 2 pages of different protein sources and how much protein they have per 100 grams, which may help make it a little bit easier and give you some ideas. So go and download that. The other thing I wanted to talk about with protein is protein powders and protein supplements. So these are things that people tend to think are some kind of magic bullet to help you build muscle or help you lose weight. They're not. However, they can be useful tools. If you're someone who's really struggling to get enough protein into your diet without dramatically going over your calories, then having a protein shake can actually really help. A lot of good protein shakes will have about 25 grams of protein to about 100 calories. And it's difficult to find a food source that matches that. So if you are struggling, then there's nothing wrong with using a protein supplement to help increase your daily protein intake and get you up towards that target that you're aiming for. Okay, so that's it for this week, guys. I hope that helped. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. Make sure you go and download that ebook as well if you're still unsure, if you need some more ideas of where to get protein from. I'll see you in the next video. Have a lovely rest of the day.